Hello everybody, welcome back tonight to another night, open mic night, open topic, open discussion, whatever you want to call it. We've been joined tonight by our usual regulars. We have Manda and Dave and Rib. Donna has been starting to pop in. Can we call you a regular now, Nearly? And we have Pio in the top corner. We should hopefully be joined by a few other people as the night goes along, but yeah, again, everybody, thanks for coming back. Tonight's topic is the power of testimony, the power of stories, how things can influence you, what's personal experiences that you've been through that either led you into Christianity, out of Christianity, and yeah, we'll start there. We'll run with that. Or Dave, I like to put you under pressure at the start as always, because you're probably the smartest one sounding here. What have you got to add to this? Have you any stories you'd like to share?
No. None that I remember. I mean, I could talk about how testimony on the whole is absolutely terrible.
Go for it. Let us hear.
I'm not convinced that's a good starting point.
Well, personal testimonies, as just to explain it, is the experiences that people go through. I think a lot of us would find that when we go to church, and perhaps in the younger days, maybe more so in the fundamentalist churches and things like that, that we do or did have people up at the front. I know going to the Salvation Army that there was periods on certain Sundays that people would go to the front of the church to the mercy seat, as they called it, and they would share their personal testimonies with each other. Donna, I know you did mention that you had a good story and personal testimony. Could we tap you for that and see where we can go on that?
Yeah, so I used to go to quite a intense Pentecostal church. And personal testimony was literally the be all and end all. So our pastor was fucking nuts. And would come out with the most ridiculous stories. So it was the South African-based church. African Christianity is slightly intimidating. I remember him talking about playing hockey, getting a hockey puck to the teeth, all of his teeth falling out and being prayed over and having his teeth rolled back. People used to buy this shit, and actually today had a girl who now is wasn't a youth worker there when I was there, but is now, and said pastor has now fallen from grace, shall we say, and has been kicked out of the church. And she told me how she actually read that story in I can't remember the book, but she actually read it in a book, and she called him on it, and he blagged his way through it. But apparently, yeah, that testimony that he gave wasn't his. So yeah. But people, yeah, they loved it in that church. It was all like, you know, my dad left, everyone would boo because lots of people's families were split up, and I think that Christianity as a whole uses it as like a relation tactic. But yeah, I could blab on forever, but I will let other people speak.
Well, as you say, that's where the power of it comes from. It's because that somebody has been through that. Now, everybody, you know, maybe there's 100 people in the church. Them 100 people, 90 of them have all had their own personal experience. Even though each one of them is slightly different and in a slightly different time period and different circumstances and things like that, the fact that you have 90 people of information that comes together and as an evidence, a ground for believing in God. Dr. John Owen, thank you very much for joining us. I'm not too sure who you are. Please don't do a dick pic. You'd like to introduce yourself?
I wouldn't do anything like that, of course. But hi, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Thank you for joining us, man. Have you anything that you would like to add on the topic, seeing as you did jump in and we're going to put you straight on the spot?
Well, I'm not really familiar with people on this show. I got to be honest. I searched for a live stream from StreamYard to see if there's discussions and things like that. And I followed a little bit of what you guys were saying, and just wanted to know, what you believed and things like that.
Well, I can safely say probably everybody in here at the minute would be an atheist. you could go into the fights of who's an agnostic and who's an atheist agnostic and all that, but that would be a completely different conversation. So we'll just broad brush everybody and say that we are pretty much, we're all atheists here. Secular, we'll go with that, yeah. Yourself?
No, I am a Christian.
You're very welcome.
I'm a Jewish atheist.
Well, thank you for joining, man. I do appreciate that, and all walks of life are welcome here as long as people are respectful and cordial to each other. It's everybody's appreciated. Jim?
Wait, can I ask a question?
Go on ahead, Amanda.
Would you prefer to be called Dr. Owen, John? What would you like to be addressed as?
You can call me John. It's not my name. Actually, the picture and the name comes from a theologian whose name is Dr. John Owen.
I know. I just, with respecting that. So, whatever you want to be called, though, is fine with us.
Thank you, John. And thanks, Jim, for jumping in. I tried to reach out to Jim earlier, and he literally got back to me like 2 minutes ago. I was like, someone send him the link. So Jim's been dumped in here at the deep end, so to speak. Tonight, Jim, we're talking about the power of testimony. And I'm sure coming from your sort of background and being in the church and your family being who they are, that you've witnessed an awful lot of things like that, personal testimony and experiences that they would have went through, maybe speaking in tongues or anything like that in the churches that you went to.
Oh yeah. The testimony of the Holy Spirit, of being saved and all of that. But not only that, something I found a lot more powerful and convincing was other people's testimonies. It was something that was used to really reaffirm people's faith.
Yeah, well, that's something we mentioned just before you come in. The fact that Donna had her own particular story. We said that if there was 90 people in a church of 100, the fact that each of them 90 people has one, it does reinforce, even though they're different, they're all separate incidences and separate people. The fact that they all keep happening, it does reinforce and hammer home the evidence, the proof that God does exist.
How many of them are just coincidences?
A lot. So I would say a lot. For me, in my testimony, so my family has a lot of mental health problems. I mean, what family doesn't have some? So people loved my testimony of talking about how God helped me forgive my aunt because she committed suicide and I was an angry teenager about it. Yeah, I was like a guinea pig in my church. I was used very much for their own gain, unfortunately. But, that is what it is.
The crazier the story, the more we can use you to the advantage, because this obviously must be a miracle. Is that yeah?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Donna came from the rough family, and now she's saying, God forbid. Oh my God.
How do you determine who is telling you a story that is something to do with God? And who is telling you a story that is just coincidence and has absolutely nothing to do with God?
You don't. It's just it's an emotive thing, isn't it? It's to spark emotion in people so that they can relate to you. And then you're saying, your life's great now because the Holy Spirit's in your life, and I speak in tongues, and I've got community and stuff like that. It's all about grabbing people at their lowest.
I did find that now when I left the Salvation Army and left the church, the girlfriend at the time, she was going to, I don't know, it's a weird church. It was in the back room of a hotel and stuff like this. It was like an advanced, very, forward and fundamentalist sort of ideas is the one that she went to. And I did go to that for a couple of weeks afterwards. And I did, as you pointed out, Donna, a lot of the people that I would have interacted with was, they've lost somebody in their life, or they're coming out of drug addiction, or alcohol abuse or something like that. And I use the analogy sometimes that there was a hole in their life, and because that hole was so big, that's why they and the hole is then needing to fill that hole and needing to find purpose and existence. And they find that in the community of the church. John, being a Christian, have you got a personal testimony, or is there something that you have experienced yourself that either led you down the route of Christianity or helped reinforce your beliefs?
Well, it's nice that you would ask. Actually, I don't believe in speaking in tongues as something that happens today. I think that people are confused to what speaking in tongues actually is, biblically speaking, and you try to justify that. It came from the Methodist movement, as I was trying to say on the comments. They engendered the Pentecostal movement, which came back with those new revelations and all sorts of things eventually. And I personally think that these things that you see in the New Testament had nothing to do with their personal experience that we see today. In other words, the gibberish, I don't qualify
So we can
speak what the New Testament describes to us.
we can all come in an agreement then that it's just people speaking gibberish.
But they're absolutely convinced it's not.
Yeah,
I would.
yeah. I've spoken to people that go through that as well, and yeah, and this woman was a very intelligent woman as well. I think she was actually a nurse like yourself, Donna, and you know, it shocked me when she came in and mentioned that she went to the church up around the corner, and I was like, the crazy people that speak in tongues and don't let you leave till they finish. And she was like, yeah, it's very empowering, and it's, you know, but... Rib, you've been very quiet in the bottom corner. Have you? You've always been an atheist, though, Rib, haven't you?
No. I was a Catholic up until when I was 16.
Oh, I forgot you're Irish. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, of course. I didn't actually have. Okay, so this story, I can't remember what the occasion was, but it was one of those ones where like I was basically forced to go because it was some form of an event. Was it like an anniversary or something like that? So I had to go to church this one time. I was already an atheist when this happened. But the priest got up there and he started telling this story. He was like, and there was supposed to be this kind of obvious message of like non-discrimination and anti-xenophobia and stuff like that. Like, that was the kind of overarching message, which is good. I think we can all agree on that. But the way that he went about it was just horrible. He started off by telling this story that there was a group of like hunters that were out and they stumbled upon an alien spaceship. I swear to Christ, he said that. Then the spaceship like landing door like shot out and a few aliens came out, and because the hunters were scared and they were startled and they didn't know what to expect, they shot all of them dead, right? And when they searched the spaceship, they found this box that they couldn't open, and they hired like all these locksmiths, all these experts in their areas, and none of them could open this box. And then he said, and in the box was the cure for cancer, right? And at that exact moment, I leaned to my mom, who was sitting next to me, and I just goes, if they couldn't get the box open, how do they know there was a cure for cancer in it? But it was just kind of like, I don't know, like, again, the message overall was very good, but it's just how it was just terrible story. So I don't have any that I can recall from when I was a believer, but that story always just sticks with me. It's a funny one.
Well, I know something I'll share on being on my behalf, and a few people who have been on the channel and anyone who's been following it for a while has obviously heard this story before. I'll try and do a shortened version, but back in the day before there was internet, young boys being young boys and running around with the magazines off the top shelf, there was one between a group of us in primary school, and we used to take turns hiding it and stuff. The parents in the school obviously found out, and at that stage we all denied it, everybody denied it, and we had hidden it in my house, in a storeroom, in an old, what used to be called a telephone table, if you know what I'm talking about, Donna, you know, them sort of things, at the very bottom, buried away, never to be seen. And we went and spent the day on what was the land of my mother's grandfather. And that particular night, she said that she had had a dream. He had came to her, told her exactly where the book was, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, my mother woke me up by hitting me in the face, and she threw it at me. And that's the story that she told me, was like, if it's not this here, you know, and all the rest of it. And it was her grandfather or her uncle or whatever it was that she said came to her in a dream and told her where this was. And at that stage in my life, I was in around the deistic views and things like that. So it is something that maybe, from my own point of view, is a personal testimony that did keep me thinking down the deistic lines. Obviously not the Christian from my point of view at that time, but it did keep me more in that supernatural is possible box for a little wee while longer. You know, obviously it's on her mind. She's been thinking about it for a couple of days, and she went to sleep and she's just thought of somewhere where we could hide it. There's not many places in the house. Or she could be flat out fucking lying to me. I don't know. But there is, as I've got older, I found reasonings and not excuses for it, but reasonings and actual probabilities that are more likely than somebody's dead ghost spoke to her in a dream. No, done.
You know who speaks very well to this, she calls it all the woo-woo, is Erin Lewis, talking to, because she's dealt with, I don't know if you people know who she is. Erin Lewis used to be referred to as the Brazen Atheist. She is an author, has written 3 books so far, ex-stripper, and she talks a lot about how she used to deal with a lot of her colleagues in the industry believed in stuff like that, were really into the supernatural or even conspiracy theories and stuff. It's very interesting. Should have a talk with her sometime.
I do find that anyone who is open to that personal testimony, as we've said before, it leads them open to the ideas of the supernatural, which leaves them more open to an awful lot of range of conspiracy theories and things like that. And excuse me. You want to start the critical thinking, the logical in one. If you're open to one, you're open to it all. So if it is a difficult route that you try and convince it can shatter everything, so to speak. Jim, and I know that you've been around an awful lot of churches. Is there any personal testimonies or anything that anybody has come forward and said anything to you before that, even from your point as a Christian, as a young minister in the situation that you were, where you looked at them and went, that's just fucking crazy? Is there anything you've experienced?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've heard people being brought back to life, people being miraculously healed. Because in the Pentecostal church, we had a lot of missions, a lot of like all over the world, building churches, bringing medicine. MedExpress was one of the companies that we worked with, and they were all over the world delivering medical supplies and helping out during national disasters and droughts and famine and whatnot. So I've heard a lot of crazy ones, but in the Pentecostal church, the laying on of hands is a way of healing, and praying for that person with your hands on them is a really big thing. And so it doesn't matter if you had a bump on the elbow or if you had some sort of mental illness, you were getting prayed for if you made it known in the church. And so naturally, whenever somebody's bruise went away or somebody's ache went away, it was, of course, attributed to the power of the name of Jesus.
Especially as
Did you have people that didn't get healed and they were then told that was a lack of faith? That was a massive thing in the Pentecostal church that I was at.
Yeah, or it's God's will.
God's will, yeah.
John, I see you typing away in the chat, man. Feel free to speak up. Open platform here if you want to speak. Just open up, man. We'll be quiet and let you say something if you want. Go on ahead.
Well, I really have nothing much to say on the mic unless someone asks me a question or something. Which I'm really open to discussion.
I would have a question. Isn't like the whole Christian belief based on testimonies? Because there is no one word of Jesus written in the New Testament.
Well, it's based on secondhand testimonies at best.
Go on ahead, John.
Yeah, you're saying that Christianity is based upon the testimony of people? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, it's not my belief concerning that. I think Christianity is based upon the revelation of God in Holy Writ.
But there is no one word written by Jesus in the New Testament, and the Old Testament, of course, rejects Jesus.
Doesn't need to be written by Jesus. I'm not sure the Bible ever makes a claim that the Bible must be written by Jesus.
It doesn't make the claim that it needs to, but the New Testament presents itself, especially the Gospels present themselves as eyewitness accounts, when in fact they're not.
How can you prove they're not?
Because they are written like 100 years later or something.
Well,
Then you'd have to
a lot
disqualify
more than
anything that's. You'd have to disqualify the writings of Caesar's to Sieges.
no,
a lot of
no,
historians.
we certainly wouldn't. No, we have contemporary accounts of them. While they're not first-hand accounts by Caesar himself, they are much more contemporaneous than Suetonius and Tacitus and Josephus and Cassius Dio, where it's Jesus.
Okay, so your argument was that the earliest manuscripts that you have of the New Testament does not correspond to the lifetime of the apostles when they wrote it. You know the context of the Jews at that time.
No.
The
There's one more
destruction of the temple in
question.
Jerusalem in 70 AD, for example, and it seems far-fetched to me that you demand that there must be manuscripts dating at the exact time of the apostles, and we couldn't rely upon copies of copies, which to me it doesn't prove anything, because we have copies of all of our writings. We don't have the original.
There's
We
one
don't have
more
any
question.
original manuscripts of anything that's ancient.
If Pio can ask a question, let John respond, and then I want to give Manda a turn.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I did interrupt. There's one. In fact, my question. My question was about we don't have anything what Jesus himself wrote down, like any of what he said or wanted to bring to the people. We have only stuff of people who are talking about him talking.
Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah,
so
do
do you say that?
just a transmission of an oral tradition? These aren't the eyewitnesses actually writing this down. These are authors who purport themselves to be eyewitnesses, but they don't specifically claim it. But the way that they're writing suggests that they want the readers to believe that they were there at the time of these events. When in fact, take Matthew, for example. The alleged author of Matthew is supposed to be an actual eyewitness, and yet Matthew depends so heavily upon Mark, who is just a translator of an eyewitness. Mark never knew Jesus, and Mark is writing at a time after the eyewitness had died. So you would think that if these things were to be recorded, they would be recorded at within a couple of years at latest, not decades later.
There's a couple of arguments to respond to what you said. First of all, if I may answer to one person at a time, because I can't answer every single statements of everyone. Pio said something to me. He said something about Jesus's writings. Why exactly do you need Jesus's writings? Why do you need to have the writings of Jesus? How could you? I mean, I don't really understand the argument. If it's to prove the existence of Jesus, then that would be a different thing. But then I'll have to beg the question. There are many characters in history that we don't have the writings of.
But we don't need to know that they existed. It's not really relevant if they exist.
Yeah, I'm not questioning his existence at all.
So what are you questioning? Because the Bible
His
never.
divinity, the claims of divinity.
No, wait. Let me just. The thing is, there are only people talking what he was supposedly said, something, right? There is not even one document of himself writing down, this are my thoughts, these are my teachings, or something. We have only people who are saying, this is what he said, but there is and this is I've heard he said this and this, but nothing from him directly. This is my question. I'm not doubting that there is a person, maybe there was a Jesus, right? Maybe there were three of them, and then after that they were constructed to one person. What I'm trying to say that the whole New Testament relies on people who are talking about him saying something, but we don't know if he really said this stuff.
Okay, so you've got different persons. Now you're arguing they lived in different times, and they speak about Jesus, right?
So what I think Pierre's trying to say is that the whole New Testament is based on personal testimonies, and you're kind of trying to say that personal testimony isn't a solid thing, but the whole of the New Testament is the apostles' testimonies. of Jesus.
Yeah, and so
Right.
I could agree with that, and to some extent, I don't think that's limited to that. And at the same time, I don't think that we need to have the writings of someone to prove the message concerning someone. I think people around him, and I would like to debate the issue of the authorship of Mark and Matthew. I'm very familiar with the argument from Bart Ehrman. Because I'm very familiar with textual criticism at large, and I find the argument of Jim concerning the authorship of Mark and Matthew to be very, it doesn't convince me at all. Mark personally knew Peter, and that we know that from the witness of Peter's writing.
Sure. And
There,
Peter was dead at this point by the time Mark's writing.
Well, if John, I don't think we're going to come to a general consensus. If John maybe wants to do that, I know other people are bitten at the bit to get in here, but I don't think we're going to go down the route of trying to prove if the Gospels are real or not. That could go on.
I'm not
That's
trying to
yeah.
do that. I'm
Oh, no,
simply
no,
answering your questions.
Yeah, I'm letting you go on ahead, John.
Oh, simply answering your questions the best way I could.
Oh, no, I'm
I
talking mainly
definitely
to
not
Jim. Yeah, no, and just everybody else wants to ask questions. I know Manda wants to ask one. I know Rib wants to ask one as well. So if Manda, if you would like to jump in, or Rib.
I'll let Manda go first. Ladies first. I was brought
No,
up
I
right.
you didn't introduce. You introduced everybody, but well, there's new people here, so now anyway. But Amanda. So.
Manda's we've got Brian that's joined us. We've got the crazy cat lady Diana as well. And one thing, John, if I can ask a question, Digital Hammurabi is in the chat and wanted to know: do you have any sort of what's your background? What's your educational background? Do you have anything in this field?
What background I am?
Your educational background. Because we're talking about biblical criticism here and things like that, and Digital Hammurabi, as you know, would specialise in that. And we're just wondering, as we're talking about it and you were bringing it up, do you have any formal training in that, or do you have a background in it?
Not really, which is one of the reasons concerning theology specifically. I was supposed to start attending theological seminaries concerning specifically. Well, I was attending for a master in theology, but I haven't started yet because of the COVID thing and everything that's going on. But this is one of the reasons why I'm not the best one in the field, but I know a little bit about textual criticism and issues like that because I'm passionate about these things. And I want to be very skeptical about my own faiths as well as other things.
That's good. I find that in Spartan theology as well. Likes to educate himself and find things out and all that there as well. So, Rib, if you want to ask your question that there, and we can bounce over to you.
Yeah, I would just like to ask you, John, how you account for the fact that some of these supposed eyewitness testimonies are written in the first person.
Which one exactly? I'm not sure what the question is. I'm sorry.
Okay, so just for example, right? If the scene happened that a car hit a man that was crossing the street, right? If I was to say that as the observer, I would say the car hit the man, whereas in the first person it would be the car hit me. In some cases, in some passages in the Bible where it is said to have been in the second person, or sorry, in the third person, somebody watching this happen, where that is set up to have happened, it is written in the first person. So I would just like to kind of hear how you would account for that, considering that you think that they were written by the
which books precisely? Because most of the New and Old Testament.
I mean, I can throw up a few examples for you if you'd like.
Nehemiah, probably. There are some book that are the exception concerning the style they use for first person instead of third person, for example. Most of the Jewish style of writings was not to include yourself or try to distance yourself as far as possible from the story. So this is something you find in the New Testament. So I'm not sure. I'm not really sure which books you're referring to. I know there's probably a passage in Nehemiah, but
Brian, you've been listening. If you want to jump in after Rib, if you feel that that's been addressed, Rib.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the biblical versus historical Jesus thing, right now the consensus is that there may have been a historical Jesus, but where we have to kind of draw the line there is to what extent a individual has to match the characteristics as portrayed in the Bible. It's kind of what they call my grandfather's hammer situation. If there's, at what point is the character that we're reading about in the actual verses and then the historical figure that we're seeing independently verify, how much correlation between those two before it's not the same person anymore. And I guess I'd like to have Jim's thoughts on that as well, because I know he's pretty well versed in that area.
Go on ahead, John, and then Jim, if you want to, after John.
Sure.
So the statement is trying to make a disconnection between the historical Jesus and the biblical the Jesus, right?
Yeah, just
Okay.
how much do you accept could differentiate the two and still conflate them as the same individual?
Well, of course, and I just want to point it out to people here. I have some issues with my speech. I am French. Je parle français. C'est ma première langue. Et puis, sometimes I try to back translate from English to French, from French to English, and that's why I misunderstand. Especially Rib with your accent, your fancy accent, it makes it difficult for me. But I don't see a difference between the historical Jesus and the biblical Jesus. I think the reason why we got an historical Jesus in the first place is that we've got the biblical account about Jesus.
Well, I mean, the biblical account has certain, like, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but like armies of zombies and stuff that we know didn't happen. So, I mean, I shouldn't say we know that no evidence has been found that something like that has happened or could happen. You got these supernatural events and occurrences that are just not accounted for, that are associated with the character.
Well,
It's consistent.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's consistent with materialism. I understand that, but I don't disqualify that for the simple fact of the matter is the whole creation from the Christian belief. Things came out of nothing because God created everything out of nothing. As opposed to, if you're saying, I understand you guys being atheist. I know I'm the minority here, but of course, to me, the miracle of creating everything out of nothing, from the start, Christians will assume that that's the explanation of our universe and how it came to be. So for dead to be raised and all sorts of miraculous things to happen, from that worldview, I mean, it doesn't, it's perfectly consistent with our worldview concerning that.
How do you know that something
It's
can come out of
consistent
nothing?
if you're operating under the context of the presupposition.
Let me clarify.
We all have presuppositions. You have presupposition concerning God as well as I have.
Let me
No
clarify
one's ever
that,
going to come to God.
that I'm questioning why we have historical records of these mundane things, like, oh yeah, this guy said that was his brother, things like that, and we have that well documented. But the only place we find documentation of these other events is in the biblical text itself, whereas any extra biblical records are fairly mundane, or about a mundane individual.
So in regards to the historical Jesus, you have a bunch of claims that are made that are based on Old Testament, what the authors thought to be prophecy. So things like the virgin birth, for example. I assume you believe that to be an aspect of the historical Jesus.
Oh, yeah, I would not make this connection between historical and biblical account. Yes.
You wouldn't make the connection?
No, I would not disconnect them. I believe that the historical Jesus is the biblical Jesus.
Okay. So do you believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, or do you believe that he was born of a young woman who was of childbearing age?
Well, both. I mean, that young girl was a virgin. Young woman was a virgin.
And what makes you think that she was a virgin?
Well, what the New Testament tells us and the prophecies of the Old Testament concerning the virgin birth of Christ.
If I can
Okay,
just jump in there, if I can just jump in,
Mary's
Jim,
virgin?
and say
Hang on,
thank
hang
you, Ontangelo, for joining us. I wanted to just thank Ontangelo. I don't know if Dr. John knows Ontangelo. Ontangelo would be a Christian as well, so you just to keep everything a wee bit more fair here. And if John and Jim, if you two want to maybe sort something up, we could maybe sort of debate or something like that. But I feel like everybody else is being left out here. I want to make it more of an open panel, open discussion, sort of bounce around the room a wee bit more. So if John and Jim, if you just want to finish up your wee point, and then we'll bounce over to Ontangelo and say hello.
Sure. So whenever you look at something like the infancy narratives of Jesus in Luke and Matthew, not only do you see inconsistencies with the way that they use the Old Testament, but you see inconsistencies in between them, each other, and them themselves, especially in Luke when you deal with things like the year of Jesus' birth, whether or not Jesus fled into Egypt to escape the wrath of Herod, killing the massacre of the innocents and whatnot. There are a lot of thematic developments in the New Testament that can easily be explained by misinterpretation, misuse even of the Old Testament. Now, I do believe there is a historical Jesus at the core of this myth burrito, but there's a lot of unwrapping to do.
Okay, thank you, John.
You made a statement concerning inconsistencies. I happen to have a book of completely of contradictions, alleged contradictions in the Bible. And I'm very. I have books by skeptics, not necessarily only Richard Dawkins, obviously, Christopher Hitchens as well. But when you look at
those experts in the field,
Let him finish, Jim. Please let him finish, because we're going to move on. At least let him finish.
Of course, I apologize, Jim. I do not have. I don't have every books of most notorious atheists on the subject. I apologize if I can't represent them the way that would be satisfying to probably the audience or yourself. But and again, I'm sorry about my language barrier here. You're doing really well. In all honesty, man, I didn't even pick up a French accent or anything. I can, but you spoke about inconsistencies, and I'd like to see those verses that you'd see. There's inconsistencies. You spoke about Matthew you quoted Matthew concerning the fleeing in Egypt part. There is something within the Old Testament concerning the prophecy about the Messiah, in which Jesus is typified through Israel, and Israel had left in the wilderness. This is the explanation throughout that. Matthew is concerned about the prophecies about the Messiah. This is his concern and his reason for his book. His audience is seeking to show Jesus as the Messiah to a more Jewish audience.
Well, John, if you're interested, man, we could maybe hold a discussion just between you and Jim, and you seem very decent and good in that, and well educated on the topic as well.
I'm,
so I would
I'm definitely not as qualified as Jim. I'd assume concerning debates and things like that.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, man, with the language barrier and all as well. I had no idea that you were French. I just thought you were shy. So, you're doing really well. If I can bounce over, I just wanted to say hello again, or hello to Ontangelo. Are you working tonight, Ontangelo? Do we have audio?
Yeah, I think I have audio. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we have got you tonight. Yes, because I remember last week you did jump in at the end, and we just had
end, no one can hear.
We had Ontangelo's icon for quite a while. I don't know, John, if you have heard of Ontangelo, the famous Ontangelo that has been on Talk Heathen multiple times.
No, actually, it's the first time I join in this chat. So I haven't heard of him, even among debating circles. Debates with atheist Christians and things like that. I haven't seen him in the past, maybe perhaps without knowing it. if he debated some people.
Well, Antangelo, would you like to give John a wee quick summary of your beliefs? Now, keep it short because we've been focusing on singing. So nip it out there. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm an evangelical Christian for 36 years. And I'm a young Earth creationist. I moved from old Earth to young Earth. I went in time period of about 10 years. So during this time period, I was on the sideline. I didn't hold a view on that matter. So today I am a young Earth creationist, and my focus is intelligent design. I have a YouTube channel, Intelligent Design Academy, and the second YouTube channel, The God Talk, where it's more focused of having live debates with atheists and... Yeah.
Perfect. Right. Antangelo, or has anybody got a question that they would like to Antangelo? Rib or Brian? I know that you two love talking to Antangelo, so I'll nip it over to you first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Crazy Cat Lady on the spot and give her a question because she's been very quiet for a while. So, Rib, Brian, would any of you like to jump in?
You can go first, Brian, if you want to.
Well, yeah, it actually kind of pertains to what John was saying earlier about maybe some language barriers too, because I know Antangelo is well known for his analogies that he would say are not analogies. Things like that cells are not analogous with factories, but cells are factories. But I'll let him tell his point on it. Go ahead, Antangelo. Do the cells and factories explanation, so we can kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, in my understanding, cells are factories as an analogy to human-made factories, but as well they are literal factories in the sense that they produce the chemical molecules from scratch. They import them from nature, they fix carbon, nitrogen, and then from there on they make all the building blocks, the basic ones. They make the proteins, the metabolic pathways, everything that is needed for self-replication. And self-replication is basically the epitome of manufacturing. We are not able to do it, but cells do it. And my understanding, cells had to emerge fully operational right from the beginning. That story that they could be proto-cells that came about by chemical evolution, I don't believe that is possible.
Okay. Now, as far as what definition of factory that you use when you say that they aren't just analogous with factories, but they are factories, because all definitions of factory that I see that are using the term as a literal, not a descriptor, as a facility, they all include things like industrial machinery and a human workforce, things like that. So, with that definition in mind, would you still say that they are literal and not analogous?
Well, factory comes from the Latin, which is fabricare, and fabricare is making. So they produce something. They reproduce themselves. So that's the basic issue. Of course, they do not have workers like human-made factories, but they are fully and 100% autonomous. So,
so would you say that a bird is a nest factory? Because birds build nests as part of their function in their life. So would you, if you use the term factory by your definition, or would a bird be a nest factory?
Yeah, they make nests, but I don't. Well, nobody made that question, so I don't know. Maybe not.
I thought it would be a new question for you, so I'm trying to hone in on your definitions here. I think we have a better discussion if we both are using the same terms in the same way. And the way that you describe a cell as being literally a factory could also be attributed to a bird as literally being a factory that makes nests. So I just wanted to kind of clarify on that. But I'll hand things over to Rib now. And give you a chance next time we talk, think it over and see what you say. But yeah, go ahead, Rib.
So it's the young Earth creationists that really kind of intrigue me. shall we say, to put it mildly. You do know that there are trees older than you think the Earth is, right? Trees that you could, like, given the right circumstances, go and look at and investigate for
honest,
yourself that they are more than 6,000 to 10,000 years old. I'm not 100% sure where you kind of land in that, but like, it's older than you think the Earth is. So either the tree existed before the Earth and it just landed there, or you're wrong. I mean, like,
yeah,
you are wrong, but like, I'm just kind of wanted to kind of poke you on that a little bit.
Yeah, there is that study of the rings of the wood. I don't know the scientific name. They study how many rings the wood has. And so on. Yeah, so I mean there is some dispute on this and controversy. Some say, well, it's this, others say that. I am not well known and versed in that issue, so I'm not the best person to give a good explanation in regards of that one.
There's really not a lot of dispute in that field, though. It's really kind of a well understanding. We use it it has practical application in the real world too. It's not really disputed in the field itself.
Yeah, I don't say that the young Earth creationist view doesn't have open questions. It has. That is undisputed, and I don't have answers to many issues, but I think the age of the Earth is a very complex theme which requires understanding of many different topics, and then you have to weigh against the other. It seems to me that has more weight than the other view, and to me that's basically it. I give a lot of weight to.
So you would take into consideration that no one piece of evidence itself leans towards a young Earth. It must all be taken as a whole and as a consideration as a whole. On Tangelo, is that what you're trying to put across? Yes.
I disagree with you. I think there is lots of evidence. Otherwise, I wouldn't hold that view.
No, that's why I'm asking you. I'm asking you a direct question. I'm not making a statement. I'm asking you. Do you know? What you said is there's lots of evidence that we all have to take into consideration. I'm asking you, is there one piece of evidence that is particular, that this is definitive and we cannot change it? Or is it the fact that we have 20 pieces of evidence that we must all take into consideration, and it doesn't matter if you debunk one, I've got another 9 to back me up? You know, is it the group or the collection of evidence that is more convincing to you? Something similar to like what we were trying to talk about at the start with personal testimony, the fact that you've so many people talking about it, so many different topics. But is there one piece of evidence that you have that you can slam down that just goes, right, no, this is definitive proof, this on its own can stand out and prove a young Earth?
Well, I don't think that anything is about proofs. It is about the weight of the body of evidence. So I think the soft tissue in dinosaurs is important fact. Then I think that Noah's Ark has been found on Mount Ararat. I had an interview last week with Philip Williams, which visited the site. There are videos of the wood there, and there is mitochondrial DNA, the faint sun paradox, the lunar recession cannot be billions of years old, evidence of civilization.
Antangelo, if I can just jump in, you're just talking about something that you had on and everybody has to go and reference these. Can you actually, you're not putting evidence forward, you're saying, you know, go watch this is evidence, you know.
Yeah, you said, Antangelo, that the Earth's age is very complicated, but it is not. You know, I don't know what your citations are, but I mean, I have a degree in astrophysics, and I can tell you that you are 100% wrong. The Earth's age is not a very complicated subject. It is well known, and it is, you know, well versed. We know what it is. What is your backing by saying these things?
Yeah, one very important issue is the starlight problem, and I didn't have an explanation for that issue for a long time, and I know that some old Earth creationists, they are so in special because of that issue. I have studied it, and And I have answers in regards of that. I can put the link here so you guys can have a look.
Do you think your God has set out to deceive us?
Excuse me?
Essentially. Do you think your God has set out to deceive us?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that God.
Right, then why are there physical processes that take billions of years that we have witnessed?
We have witnessed?
As in, we can see the net result of that process.
Well, I have no expertise on that, so you really need to talk to young Earth creationists that study astrophysics. I don't.
There are young Earth creationists who study astrophysics. Do you have any names that you could give us?
Yeah, Humphreys.
Oh,
And
Are there any reputable, incredible astrophysicists that are also young Earth creationists? That, you know,
not in my mind right now.
okay. Jim's face.
If I can just jump in and just make everything a wee bit lighter at the minute, because I know we've sort of been back and forth and this, that, and the other. Jim, it is really good to see you back, man. You know, we missed your brain, we missed having you around. Them packs and that mustache, who doesn't want to see them on stream, you know? It is very good to see you back. I hope you've been doing well. I know that you were sick there for a while and had a few incidences, and it's good to see you smiling and back on stream. And welcome back, man. Welcome back.
thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. It's good to be back.
You know, I seen you today earlier, noticed you today, you'd put out a wee tweet, and I was like, fuck yes, we were definitely going to reach out to Jim. I definitely want to see Jim and have a bit of banter with Jim. So it is the same, man. Welcome back to the community. You have an awful lot of love in the community here, and yeah, I'm just going to ramble. Welcome back, man.
I feel it, man. I feel the love. Thank you.
What?
John,
You asked for an astro.
Go on ahead, John.
You asked for a Christian astrophysicist. I can think about Hugh Dross, which is actually he's an old Earth creationist, but Jason Lyle is actually a young Earth creationist as well. I don't know much about the issue, definitely not as much as the guest that came in, and I'm willing to admit it. I mean, I don't think that every Christians know every single answers about everything. They'll listen to the experts just as well as some atheists might listen to experts on other fields concerning subjects, but you know,
but they don't listen to the people that are experts in the field. This is the problem we've got. We were specifically dealing with young Earth creationists at this point.
Yeah, and the problem is that within the field, like people who have relevant degrees or relevant education in that field, that are young Earth creationists, it's an extremely fringe movement, and it has been an extremely fringe movement for hundreds of years.
Montanzo?
Yeah, it is controversial, of course, and I understand anyone that believes that the Earth is old. I've held that position for a few years too. My wife's father was a geologist; he was an old Earther, so I'm fine with anyone that holds that belief that the Earth is old. There are many old Earth creationists, so I have not a big problem with that, really.
But this tends to be the position that you argue the most.
Well, I just confess to believe that the Earth is young, and as I said previously, last week I had a chat on my channel. You can look it up with Philip.
Please don't. That's 4 times now you've advertised your channel. 4 times. 4 times. Please.
Plug it.
All right, everybody's entitled to have a wee plug of their channel, and we enjoy that and stuff. But
Stop it.
4 times you've now plugged your channel. Stop it.
The question I have regarding old Earth creationism is that you have man being created on what was the first day? Genesis, I don't know, but in one of the first few days. So, would an old Earth creationist be of the stance that humans have existed for 14.7 billion years?
Montanzo.
I think that old Earthers, they don't have an idea how old the Homo sapiens is. I've never seen an old Earther giving a clear answer to that question.
Because we don't know when Homo sapiens started. That's evolution. We have a window. We know we started somewhere between here and here, but we definitely can't ever, because there was no first human. There's no such thing as a first one of the species.
Yeah, it's a population. Evolution is effective across a population, not an individual. I think that's what you're saying, Dave. Yes.
Yep. And looking at the human genome, I mean, we've mapped a good deal of the human genome, more than any other genome, but we can already tell that just looking at our genomes that it would take 10.
You're lagging out, I think, Jim.
Yeah, we've lost Jim. I think.
By the way, just have to say I have to go. I wrote into the chat. I'm preparing a pizza. My wife. I have to finish those things. So, but it was really nice having a conversation with you. Matt, thank you for your email. I'll definitely try to get in touch later. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in. You're very cordial, and I know that you're French and is secondary language, so I do appreciate that. Jim, we need to kick Jim. Look at Jim. Thank you very much, John. We'll talk next time. Send me an email, man.
And Tangelo, as regarding an age, we do know that Homo sapiens has existed for at least 150,000 years, because we can trace back through DNA to individuals that long ago.
Well, I am very skeptic about these things.
Okay, we're going to give Rib, and if I can just say David Worley has joined us, so thanks Dave for jumping in, saying hello, and we'll let Rib have a wee go. I see him bouncing here, he's biting at the lip to get in, and then we'll bounce over
I
to...
just come back from a fag, so it's just kind of settling into the seat.
Alright, go on, right. So, Rib, if you want to, have a question, go on ahead there.
I mean, I guess I just kind of want to know, like, why, in the face of all of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary of a young Earth, you believe that the Earth is somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years old. I just want to know why.
Well, I can give you a list, but I don't know if that is of much meaning for you. I think, for example,
Well, kind of the premise
soft
of the
tissue
question
in
that
the
I asked you, so, I mean,
dinosaurs.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, but
Do
for
you
example,
understand how the soft tissue in the dinosaur was preserved? That it's not really soft tissue; it is remnants, fragments that have stuck. It's not. It's not. When you say soft tissue, you're thinking gooey stuff. It's not. And the method of preserving it, which has been detailed intricately in her paper, and she has been on numerous YouTube videos explaining why it doesn't date the way that young Earth creationists want it to. I mean, it should be. You should have dismissed this now completely as a line of evidence for young Earth.
Well, I disagree with you. I think that is a very important point and evidence that.
So you think the author that wrote the paper? You think the author that wrote the paper is lying?
I would not say they are lying. I would just say that I don't think that age is what they say it is. Not maybe because they are willingly lying, but I am skeptical about these dates.
How do you choose what you're skeptical about, Tangelo? How do you? Because you're making a lot of claims towards a lot of researchers and stuff that are kind of fringe.
I would just say. Well, let me suppose that I would defend an creation. So, and atheists and materialists generally they believe that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So, how does that substantiate materialism?
Do you want
evidently, since many Christians are Earth creationists, that cannot be the crux issue that made an atheist an atheist. So
no, it's got nothing to do with it. I mean, it's another one of these things you trying to attack evolution is irrelevant.
Right, let Rib have a go. Rib, let Rib have a go. Right, Rib, you jump in, have your questions. We seem to be all over the place tonight. There is no fucking order tonight at all. But Rib, have a go. and then we'll pass it around the table.
I mean, my belief, or like why I think that the Earth is more than 10,000 years old, has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I don't believe a God exists. The two are not connected at all. The fact that I don't believe that a God exists tells you absolutely nothing else about me. So you have myself, and you have, just because she has just come back, you have Donna. We're going to think different things on a lot of different subjects. Now, probably I haven't actually spoken to Donna, I don't think. Apologies if I have. But the point is that like we're going to disagree, and we're going to have like overlapping opinions on a lot of things. So just because the two of us are atheists, it tells you absolutely nothing about what something else that we might believe or not believe. So like that's just like it just doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I'm an atheist. I don't know why you went there.
Okay. Well, because many atheists, they say that believers in the Bible are irrational because they believe that the earth is young, and because Genesis says so. And I've seen many atheists bringing up that argument and saying, well, the Bible is nonsense because of this and that and the age and so forth, and that's why I'm an atheist. I've seen that many times. Maybe it's not your case, but I am mentioning it because I've seen it in many other cases.
Okay, but again, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the fact that I'm an atheist. I still don't know why you believe that it's between 6,000 and 10,000 years old.
Mama, if you were...
have all the evidence.
Well, I can give you a list if you want.
we don't want your list. No. You're just giving us another list, another video. You're not trying to prove it, Manda.
Over and over again for evidence, and you just keep repeating the same thing. How about we do have a topic, we can get back to that. First of all, Diana, it's been about a month and a half since I've been on stream with you. I've missed you. So
I miss you, sweetie.
how about we start with you? What is personal testimony in your own words? How would you describe it?
What, a definition of it?
Yeah, just, your general idea of what it means.
Okay, well, to me, it's a story somebody tells that details their experience. This happened to me, and this is what I take away from it. That's sort of testimony thing.
Okay.
And to me, it is one of the least useful items to support a position.
Yeah. It's almost like, I think, when it comes to supporting the idea of God, or even proving God, it to me, it's kind of like hearsay in a court of law. For me, it doesn't really hold any weight. Does anybody else have any different definition themselves, or any viewpoints on it?
No, I think you're right in that, and even the police service and the courts and things like that, they have proven that eyewitness testimony can change depending on where you're standing, depending on where you are, depending on who the victim is or what is happening, and in your relevance to the person that it's happened. You can skew all of your personal testimony in that direction. Everybody has bias.
Mm-hmm. There are some rather famous experiments that have been conducted to demonstrate the unreliability of personal testimony.
Really?
To accurately, I don't remember the names and dates, but I do remember one, for example, something in a classroom. Somebody, bursts in and causes a ruckus or something like that. And then everybody is asked, what happened? And there are as many stories as there are people in the class.
Yes.
So, you would not call that rather accurate.
No.
If you're going to have, 50 people in the class and have 50 different stories. Or sometimes you have 50 people in the class and you have 150 different stories.
Yeah.
Because memory is not perfect. And it does change by the process of recall.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be changed depending on the way someone asks you a question, even.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Angela, what about you? How would you define personal testimony, and how much weight do you put on it in terms of proving that God exists?
Well, in my dialogue with atheists, I think that issue has not much weight because there is much skepticism in regards of testimonies. So I always start with an approach of not trying to justify the God which I believe in, the Christian God, the Bible. I start just with asking what makes more sense, to believe that there is a God or that there is not a God. And as a God, I mean an intelligent creator. That is the first question. And if that question has been answered, and it is a positive answer from an atheist, and then if he also agrees that a creator makes more sense than no creator, then I move forward in a cumulative argument, and then I will go.
Wait,
That's not what Manda asked you.
Yeah.
Why then would you not go? What the creator has a creator that has a creator that has a creator that has a creator?
And what atheist has ever told you that that a God is necessary, or a creator is necessary either?
Well, would you agree that being cannot? Okay. Would you agree that being cannot come from non-being?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
Would you agree that being or existence cannot come from existence or non-being?
How would we know the
ultimate origin of everything?
No.
And that's not what Amanda asked at all.
No, it's not.
It still hasn't been
First
answered.
Yeah.
testimony. We're not talking about whether or not we believe in a God.
No.
I think what Manda asked you was what personal testimony was to you and how much weight that you give people's personal testimony.
In terms of proving that a deity exists.
Well, when atheists ask me about my testimony, I give it, but upon my experience, atheists have a hard time to come to believe because of personal testimonies.
Most
Well, I have a
atheists
question.
come away from it.
Yeah.
I have a question, if you don't mind, and it is meant in all honesty, all sincereness. I mean, I say this because sometimes people think I'm being a bitch when I say this. How can you distinguish between the words of a God revealed to a man who then reveals those words to you, and words from that man's own head revealed to you? This is where I lost faith, because I could not tell the difference. I did not know how to ultimately judge that the words I was being told were God's word.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my regards, I had a predisposed God. And
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out on me. I lost it.
Presupposed gods is what he said.
Oh, okay, fine. That's what I thought he said. I just wanted to...
My starting point was not science, was nothing that I am talking about with atheists today. My experience was that I was in a depression when I was a teenager, and I didn't know that I had depression, but I did try to find a way out. And finally, I started to pray to God, and I said, help me that I can overcome that depression. And in a slow process, that depression went away. And then I started to read the Bible. I went to an evangelical church, and there I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And that's how it started with me.
Can I put a disclaimer in here really quick for anybody listening?
Please do,
If you are
please.
suffering from mental health issues, please seek help.
Yes.
Don't just pray. I mean,
Yeah,
I
absolutely. I'm
respect
with you,
your,
everything.
you know, how that prayer does something for you, but that's kind of a dangerous thing to tell people, that just pray and it gets better. If you have something like depression or any sort of mental health issue.
Well, I am not promoting that. I am answering
We
because
understand that.
I've been asked about my process. You know,
Absolutely.
I don't recommend my way. And actually, I didn't know what the kind of problem that I had. And nobody even knew. Not even my parents. They didn't know what I had. And I actually tried suicide. So my situation wasn't an easy situation. But
yeah, I'm not
I'm
suggesting you did,
explaining-
Antangelo. I was just putting a disclaimer in overall. That's all.
Yeah, for example, everybody's favorite armchair apologist on Twitter has been known to recommend prayer to cure, or recommend Christianity to cure Christianity, cure depression.
Christianity does
Yeah,
cure
Christianity actually does. And of course, I'm thinking of Stephanie Jean Thomason. If you're listening in, hi there. Oh, for the love of St. Koolaid.
Why we got a pause? No, I'm just froze up. Why we got a second though? I'd like David Worley to tell us what fallacies are in personal testimony, since he's our fallacy guy.
Go on ahead, Dave. Antangelo's had 4 plugs of his channel, so feel free to throw in your channel on your birthday.
Thanks. What I was going to ask though was I didn't really get a satisfying enough answer for Diana's question. I wanted to go into a slightly different direction, if I may.
Yeah, if you could turn your gain down just ever so slightly, Dave, that would be fantastic, and then go on ahead.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Just further away from the mic, that's easier. So Diana's question was, how do you distinguish between somebody who's making stuff up and somebody who has legitimately been contacted? So my question would be, how can you tell the difference between being told something by God and being tricked by the devil?
Pretty much the same question, yeah.
Well, it's a difficult question, I would say, and I don't have a straightforward answer for that.
Yeah, because I notice in the epistles there are the admonitions to beware of false prophets, and the first thing I'm thinking anyway, a false prophet is going to tell you is that guy over there is the false prophet. I'm the real one. Nobody's ever going to admit to lying. Look at the present administration in fucking Washington, for Christ's sake. Okay, that's my political stuff for today. But really, yeah, it's, to my knowledge, there's no way to make that distinction. There's no way to know. So the best thing to do is...
There are several lines of evidence that you can put together to find out what the truth is, like a detective. If someone makes the truth claim, then you can go and investigate, like in regards of the claims made in the Bible, what historical facts are they in conformation with what the Bible says, the prophecies, what kind of papyrus manuscripts have been found, are they identical with the newer translations? So there are different things that actually bring a Christian worldview together. And it's, of course, a process. It's not just something that happens from one day to the other.
Okay, if I can ask you, Antangelo, right? If I can just interrupt and ask you, what would you define as a worldview? Because that really gets on my fucking tits. Because there is no atheistic worldview. You know, we're all different. We agree on one question. It's like asking, what color's the sky? Do we all agree that it's blue? So we've got a blue sky worldview. What would you define as a worldview?
I would make a true dichotomy, one worldview without the God and another one with the God.
Now, I'm asking what you would define as a worldview. Very simple, what you define as a worldview. 3 sentences, short, to the point.
Few seconds. That dichotomy is also bullshit.
I just gave you an answer. When I talk about worldviews, and when I say my worldview, then I understand as my worldview a worldview where a God exists, and an atheistic worldview where no God exists. Point.
Well, that's not. Well, okay, where exactly then would Islam or Hindu fit into it? They have God. They have a completely different worldview to you.
Yeah.
No. It is a worldview, and that's it. What the specificity of their God? That's another issue altogether.
Yeah, but then your worldview is your definition of a worldview is meaningless.
God exists, but the Hindu will believe that many gods exist, so that is automatically a third option. It's either one, many, or none. So far, that's just
The Well, the theistic worldview doesn't make a specification of, or quantification of the number of gods. If they say there are hundreds of
belief in God or gods.
Okay, so go back. I've got to go back to what MathPig says. Then what the hell is a worldview?
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been waiting to be answered. Define a worldview.
By your definition.
For me, it is a very simplistic dichotomy. Two buckets. In one, there are gods or multiple gods, and the other, there are no gods.
No, that's the question of.
About anyone. What does it tell you? What does the word actually mean? If it's defined by gods and no gods, what does it mean? What does it tell you about what that person thinks or feels or how they live their life?
Well, what distinguishes us? I am a theist. I'm a believer that there is a God, and atheists, they are skeptic. They don't believe in that claim.
No, they're not skeptic. Skeptic and atheist are two very different things.
And atheists, they are basically not believing that there is a God. So that is a distinction. That's it. That's what the whole debate is about.
You're missing the point. For you to use the word worldview, you're imbuing it with much more meaning than believes in a God. You're imbuing it with how you view the world.
Yeah. Well, he did say worldview, Dave.
Hello. Right? But your definition of worldview doesn't say anything like that.
Well,
that's the definition, but not the meaning.
We have just different definitions and what we mean with worldview. I just explained you what I mean with that, and that's it, basically. Of course, you can give other kinds of...
Could I ask as well? I'm sorry if this has already been asked.
Go ahead.
How would you define atheist?
There are different definitions. Some are strong atheists, some are weak atheists. Some believe there is no God. Some believe just are skeptics that there is a God. Some are agnostic, don't know, but at the same time they reject theistic beliefs. Some are.
So you would be, could we put that under the? Could I just, if we cut on Tangelo, keeping it short, could I say that an atheist would be a non-theist then, by your definition?
Yes.
Thank you. Nice and short. There we go, Dave. So a non-theist would be an atheist.
Yeah, could I take a stab and see how close I'm coming here? When you're talking about a world view, could you be talking about axioms of the system? In other words, well, an axiom properly is a statement that is, as far as anyone can tell, always true, without proof, because to attempt to prove it would result in circularity. And if you're trying to say that, and I'm basing everything upon that, I'm going to say that the existence of a God or the non-existence of a God is not a statement that can be taken as true or false without proof. It is derived from something else. So
yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. That's when atheists ask me to prove that the existence of God. I say that's a meaningless question, because they cannot prove either that the material world is all there is. So we have to ask questions which actually make sense. So that's why I end up...
When you say you can't prove that it isn't all there is, well, we can prove it is.
Hugh Peggy Lee.
We can prove what we can see around us, right? And say, we can see around us, we know this exists. And what you've got is, there might possibly be something else over here that we can't see, and we're going to believe in that. It's not on an equal footing here.
Well, too.
I disagree with you. I think the question is irrelevant. What is? We know what is. The question is, how did everything come to be?
I don't know.
That's a good answer.
That's the best answer I have.
Sorry, Diana. Sorry, I was just saying the burden of proof is on you. It's the age-old argument that people have. We're not claiming that there's something else here. We're claiming that we're living where we are. You know, like my reality is I'm here. you're on my computer screen. I'm not saying that there's some random guy telling me how to live via a book. You are.
You see, working it in reverse, if I can on Tanslo, if I can put in on Tanslo, if I can, what I would see as a worldview, the point that Don is trying to make is if you work it backwards, like you're asking us, what is our worldview? Because we are an atheist, we have an atheistic worldview, which is an umbrella term for encompassing everything. But as Donna has said, you know, she's tapping herself, she's here, she's not part of a simulation. That's part of her worldview. The sky is blue and people are real. That's part of her worldview. And working backwards, it's easy to say, this is part of my worldview. But asking someone what their worldview is, that's so encompassing. It is, you know, everybody is individual. Everybody has a different worldview. Me and Manda disagree on things an awful lot. You know, we both have different worldviews. We both have different interests, but on the things that we agree on, and it bounces back and forth. There's nobody here in the panel that would agree 100% on everything. Our worldview, the only thing we can all guarantee is we're here. This is what's happening.
Well, I agree with you. I don't see any controversy in it.
The controversy I'm seeing on Tanslo is the fact that when you're agreeing with my statement that it's an umbrella term that encompasses everything that we look at, but when I asked you what your worldview is, you said it's as simple as two buckets. You believe in God and gods, or you don't.
Correct, yes.
Well, it can't be both. It can't be as encompassing of as an entire person's personality and as simple.
It depends what you want to have explained. And for me, the term worldview has this importance: the distinction between who believes in God and who doesn't. That's it. Then, of course, as you said, everyone has a different worldview in regards of many different topics. But that is not an issue that has importance for me.
So you're asking someone what their worldview is, which encompasses everything about their entire personality, and you're acknowledging that none of it matters except the single question whether they believe in God or not.
That's the first question, because it entails many questions after that. Of course, someone can dig deeper and ask other things in regards of politics and morals and meaning and philosophy and whatever you want to put there. So, you know? I mean, of course, you can go further than and dig deeper.
Okay.
Right, then it's not a worldview.
Thank you.
It's just a question, because the worldview is defined elsewhere. The worldview is meant to be an encompassing idea that you base your life upon. And yours is not, does a God exist? Yours is Christianity. The fact that a God exists is relevant to that, but your worldview is not, does a God exist?
I don't know. Could it be Christianity? Because I know a lot of Christians who see the world differently to each other. Some are actually nice people.
Well, speaking of which, I wanted to just ask John, you put in the chat, in the side chat, the private chat here, what your definition is of a worldview. Would you mind saying that for everyone who missed it?
Hi. Worldview is a conception of the world, the conception you have of the world. That's what I understand of worldview's meaning. Your conception of the world around you.
Would you take that definition there on Tangelo? With John's definition?
Absolutely. Yes. I agree.
So it's more than just does a God exist or does a God not exist? It's more than your two buckets. Then it's a lot of factors about how you view the world.
Well, of course it can mean other things, but I use the term in a way that actually brings dialogue forward with other people.
I'll take you and John, for example. You're both Christians. You both have what would be called a Christian worldview, but I think your views might be a bit different from one another, wouldn't you?
I think it would, depending on our first presuppositions. My position is that you can't prove anything if you don't assume the God of Christianity.
I think you all probably agree on that. You both have a pretty presuppositionalist stance on that factor. So, but there'd be other things I think you all might disagree on.
Okay. Looks like you're playing that tile game where you're supposed to line up all the numbers. Question, if I may. Would my statement, the universe is rationally intelligible, qualify as a worldview? In other words, it's possible to know things about the universe and even learn things about the universe rather than occult, as one might find, some of the Aleister Crowley type things and religious type things.
Is the question asked to Atangelo or me? I'm not sure.
Anybody can jump in. I mean, and maybe I'm just full of it, but maybe I'm wasting everybody's time when I ask that question. I don't know.
I checked here on Wikipedia what they write in regards of a worldview. They say a worldview is the fundamental cognitive orientation of an individual or society encompassing the whole of the individual's or society's knowledge and point of view.
So it encompasses everything about a society or a person, and you're bringing it again. I make this point that you're bringing it down that when you were asked, you said 2 buckets, God, no God. And not that fucking Wikipedia is anything to fucking use as a source, but if anyone else would like to jump in here, Rib.
I'd just like
Yeah,
to.
oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead. I've spoken. I've spoken in the past, so you can go.
Go on ahead there, Rib, try. And speak slowly for poor John and his French ears.
Yeah, look, we've obviously kind of bounced around to a lot of different topics and stuff like that, and I actually don't know if I have any other questions so far. Anyway, that's obviously subject to change if somebody says something.
If you want to make an announcement about what you pointed out in the chat, though, Rib, that would be quite interesting. If you want to point out what you said in the live chat of the video.
So, sure. Well, let's now have the floor. So the video is at. Let me just check really quickly. The video is at 23 likes right now. I'm being 100% and deadly serious about this. If the video gets to 50 likes, I will do next week's show in drag.
Oh, come on, everybody.
Everybody, share the video out. If you've got any sock accounts, break out the sock accounts. Come on. If we can get this video to 50 likes.
On 24 already on 24.
Come on, 26 to go. You guys can do this.
We have to define, when does that end? Is that by the end of the stream? By tomorrow?
Ooh, that's actually a good question.
Right.
We'll give it to 12 o'clock. We'll give it to 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, because everybody works off Eastern Standard Time. So we'll give it to them. If we can get 50 likes by 12 o'clock Eastern Standard, then what we'll do is we'll get Rib in drag next week.
Look, 30. There we go. We only have 20 more to go. 20 likes.
Thomas, thank you very much for joining you. Thomas has jumped in at a very weird point. This was a serious conversation. He left to join a hangout and come back in, and people are talking about dressing in drag. I know you've been in the live chat. Thomas, thank you very much for joining. If anyone doesn't know Holy Koolaid, Dave will pop the link in the live chat for everyone. And Thomas, thank you again. And if you've anything you'd like to ask anyone in the panel, go on ahead, my man. The floor is yours.
Well, I've just been listening to this conversation, and I want to play the devil's advocate.
Go.
I want to defend Otangelo's position.
Oh boy!
Go for it. Considering the background that you two have together, and with Talk Ethan and all the rest of it, yeah, man, have a bit of fun with that.
So I think that when he uses the word worldview, and I come at this from the position of an ex-evangelical religious fundamentalist Christian, when I hear that word, I do think it's an incredibly general word. I do think that you can't just encapsulate everything that someone believes in one sentence of, I believe in God, I don't believe in God. That it doesn't really tell you anything about the person. But I do think that there are aspects of when theists talk about an atheistic worldview or a theistic worldview. I think that there are elements that are, shared in common. Now, where I think I would disagree with Otangelo is that I think that, and I could be wrong about this, so tell me if I'm incorrect, Otangelo, but I think that when you say atheistic worldview or theistic worldview, what you think all atheists have in common is probably significantly broader and significantly wider than what I would think. So most people on this panel would say, "Oh, we're all atheists. We don't believe in God. That's it. There's nothing else really in common." But I think that there are some caveats that, at least with high statistical probability, we do share in common. So if you take a deity or all gods, not just monotheistic God, but all polytheistic gods, all deities out of the picture, then you're left with a couple assumptions. You assume that no one's coming to save us, that if we want to fix problems, that we have to do it ourselves. And that's one element that I think is intrinsic to an atheistic worldview, is that there is this humanistic aspect of owning up and taking responsibility. And where once you kind of go out from there's other elements too. We also, you could say you don't believe that there's an afterlife, or that you don't believe that there's any kind of eternity. Even then, getting a little dodgy.
You're dismissing the whole secular Buddhist potentially.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that you're dismissing that really come under the purview of atheists.
Yeah.
Dave, let him finish. Do you know who you're talking to? Shush, let him finish.
I know.
What I was going to say is even there, you can get into non-theistic traditions that have notions of reincarnation and energy carrying over and things like that. So even then, it gets shady. But like when I said, with a certain statistical probability, you can kind of figure out what people think. It's not sure proof. It's not, there's still caveats. So I think when Otangelo, when you talk about the atheistic worldview, you probably think that it covers a lot more things than it actually does. I do think that there are commonalities that we share as atheists, like the caveat, or the one thing that I listed at the beginning. And I think that's where I'll defend you, that it's, when you say atheistic worldview, there are some things that we do have in common, but I think it's a lot narrower than maybe you realize.
Well, I have a list of at least 17 points, which an atheist, as a consequence of not believing in God, must endorse, even if he doesn't do it conscientiously and eventually not even agreeing with it. But it is a logical consequence in face of the fact that you don't believe that the God exists. I don't know if it's interesting, but I can mention these points, and these are all the points.
Why don't you start with the top one, and we'll dissect it, and we'll, if you guys are open to it on the stream, see how far we get.
Sure. Go for
I
it.
can put you the list here. I have it here. Faith that design observed in nature needs no designer. Faith that the natural...
One at a time, Ontangelo. You said you have a big long list. I can't expect him to ask that. So one at a time, please. One at a time.
Let's break that down. Can you repeat the first one?
The first one. Faith that design observed in nature needs no designer.
Disagree.
Why is that faith-based?
Right, Thomas, go on ahead, and then we'll let Dave jump in.
Okay,
would you agree that...
I just said Thomas, let Thomas go.
Nature.
So when you said that we have faith that design in nature doesn't need a designer, is that a correct rephrasing?
Yes. Yeah.
So one, you're assuming that we think that this is designed, that you call it design. And
well, I think that even Richard Dawkins agrees on that point, that it seems that things in nature are designed, but then he says, but it just appears so, but in reality it isn't designed.
Because there's patterns on Tangelo. It's we can see patterns and say, oh, someone had to make this pattern, but a pattern doesn't necessarily mean design.
Dave, have you anything you want to add?
Well, so you're basically agreeing with what I said. That, I mean, you can say that patterns appear with design. I don't know, but
that's two very different things, because the first thing that you said had a snuck premise in it, where you, by definition, you called it design and you referred to it as design. But I disagree with it. I say that it's not designed. It's patterns, and there are laws of physics that the universe operates according to. But when you call it design, you are sneaking the premise that it is designed. And design, by definition, has a designer, and so it's a little bit of splitting hairs. But I think it's an important point to make, that I disagree with the premise that it is design. But I don't think, when you say that we have faith, I mean, to some extent we are. I actually got into an argument with Cosmic Skeptic about this, where I was saying that it's not faith-based at all, nothing that. But then we spent about 2 hours going down this logical hole, and I was like, you know what? Pretty much everything, when it comes to our experiences about the world, we do take on some element of faith, and that's a whole other rabbit hole, though.
I agree with you in that. Yeah, I've went down that rabbit hole a few times.
Start with an assumption.
Yeah.
But I understand that atheists, they don't like the word faith, but the fact is that we all rely, in regards of origins, on faith, because we do not have knowledge.
And Tangelo, we don't have a problem with the word faith. We have a problem with the switching definition.
Yes.
Okay, I've no problem saying I have faith that the chair will hold me when I sit on it. Okay, that's faith, right? That's not the same faith that you've got in a god, in a designer.
But ultimately, you need to have faith that the material world is all there is. You cannot.
No, we have evidence that
we don't know if the material world is all there is. We say that the material world is all that we can at this point know, is what we experience. We're not making claims beyond what we can know.
Okay, of course you can be an agnostic and say, I have no opinion on these issues. But as soon as you take the stance that you are skeptic that there is a God, then automatically you have the one other option, which is a reality without a God.
Right.
And you cannot prove it. You cannot prove that there is.
You were asked 2 hours ago what you thought an atheist was.
The difference,
as I said, there are different definitions.
Is when you make this claim that as soon as you give up faith in God, you're just having faith that everything came about naturally. You're trying to put them on two equal footings, and I think where we would object to that is, on the one hand, you're right, and I'll give it to you that I can't say that, okay, I dropped this phone 5,000 times in a row, therefore I know that the 5,001st time for sure that it's going to fall. Logically, it doesn't follow. Science does operate based off of, past tests and past experiences testing the world, and we've never seen things violate the laws of physics, but there's no way to say that, maybe we're living in a simulation and it just so happened by chance to have operated that way, and maybe the next time it won't. There's no way to logically say that that's the case. So you are technically taking it on faith from a purely philosophical standpoint. It doesn't logically follow. But that doesn't mean that when we observe the world and we look at the world, that you can just shift the burden of proof and say, I've never observed a God, but I believe that there's a God. You've never observed a God. You don't believe that there's a God, and so these are on equal footing. I think that you're making an extraordinary claim without evidence, and you have to supply the proof. In the same way that if I were to call the cops right now and say, there's a dragon in the middle of the street, and you need to send a cop car out, and right next to it there's a unicorn that's tearing up, the subway and stuff. They're right to be skeptical, because I need to supply the burden. I need to meet the burden of proof to show that these extraordinary things that have never been witnessed or experienced or demonstrated with empirical evidence, to just conjure them out of nowhere, like I have to supply proof for that. And that's all that we're asking with God these aren't on equal footing, saying, oh, well, you have faith that there's not a God, I have faith that there is, so it's the same. It's like, no, we live and operate according to, you know, everything that we've tested and observed about the universe. And if something doesn't comport with that reality, all that we ask is that you demonstrate a little bit of proof and empirical evidence. And until then, you know, the burden of proof hasn't been met.
Well, and I say that this requirement of providing proof of God's existence is, philosophically speaking, it is passé. It is a scientism has been shown in the last century that it is not a good epistemological approach to find out the truth in regards of origins. I use abductive reasoning to the best explanation, and I put both propositions on weight. One is that we can better explain our existence without the Creator, and the other is we can explain best our existence with the Creator. And then I check where the evidence leads to. And I really, Thomas, have not any explanation whatsoever how we can explain in a consistent manner our existence without the Creator.
But you don't have a consistent manner to explain it with a Creator.
Oh yes, I have. I have many arguments.
No, you don't. At the end of the day, every argument that you have ends with nothing. That everything needs something to create it, apart from your Creator. That there is no logical way you can get around that.
I think the only logical, consistent explanation for our existence is that there is a necessary first eternal being which brought everything into existence, everything which is consistent.
I think what Dave's asking is who brought that into existence. That's the problem that you're going to get to.
Infinite regress.
Well, I made the proposition earlier, and I said being cannot come from non. Then I asked if that proposition is correct or not, and then we diverged to other topics. So I can ask again, can being come from non-being?
We don't know.
Of course we do. Can something come from nothing?
What's nothing?
That's not the same thing.
How do you know? Like, how do you know that we don't know that, Otangelo?
Well, I understand nothing in the philosophical sense as the absence of anything.
Yeah, but what are you defining as things? Are you purely talking about matter, something that has mass? Are you talking about virtual particles, or are you talking?
No, nothing of that sort. I am just saying, as a contrast of being, there is non-being. It's just a contrast. It's a contrast.
Yeah, but there's no physical actual evidence or actual representation of that. When what I find is whenever you're talking about nothing on Tangelo, you're talking about philosophical nothing, but you're conflating it with actual physical nothing, which we have no evidence for in the physical world. There literally is always something going on. There's fields, there's imaginary particles popping back and forth. There is no physical representation in the real world of the nothing that you are trying to actually put forth. You're conflating philosophical nothing and scientific nothing.
Yeah, and I think that anyone who says that the universe came from nothing knows an awful lot more about the Big Bang than any physicist alive today.
Bingo.
It's more than that as well. More than what MathPig said, because first you said there's a difference between a being coming from non-being, and then you said nothing. So is nothing the same as non-beings?
Yes.
So just to clarify, if there's something like water, I would consider a being like a human, an animal, or something like that as a being. But would you consider basic chemistry to also mean nothing?
Of course not. Chemistry is chemistry. I am saying.
But would you consider it non-being as well?
No, chemistry is chemistry that exists, so that's being that exists.
I
Everything
don't
that
think
exists
I don't think you're understanding what David is saying on
when we say nothing within this context, where things came from, we typically mean what happened before the Big Bang, and then we start to discuss a constant regress, and then the conversation just goes nowhere. Whereas when you said being cannot come from non-being, usually that conversation it comes from, did humans come from basic processes on Earth, and we're talking about abiogenesis rather
yes,
than
but you're moving.
Big Bang.
You are moving because I am talking about existence, about the bottom of existence. In my understanding, something had always to be, because from nothing comes.
Okay, why can't
How do you know
the universe?
the universe? How do you know the universe isn't eternal?
Yeah, can I
Go for Amanda.
clarify something here really quick?
Go for Amanda.
In terms of astrophysics, first of all, just so everybody is aware, the Big Bang is not a bang; it's a rapid expansion, not an explosion. But what we understand in the data that we have for the Big Bang, we don't know what, if anything, came before. It's more likely than it did. The beginning, the Big Bang wasn't just the beginning of everything. That there was probably time and space before that as well. But there is this very minute amount of time between when the rapid expansion started and that which we can actually track and measure from the Big Bang. So there's this tiny little bit of time that we cannot yet account for. So we're not sure if there really was and has ever been actually nothing at all. So do you understand that?
Yes, I understand it, but I think also from a philosophical standpoint, eternal regress is not possible, because we cannot reach the present day, the present moment, from an eternal past.
Right. So where did God come from?
Yeah.
God is eternal. He was not created. He just is.
He just said.
Why is that the exception to the rule then?
Yeah. Is he the exception that proves the rule? John, if you want to give a wee point, because you're another Christian here, is there anything that us evil atheists have been asking that you would disagree with on Antangelo's point of view?
Well, as far as the description of God, of the God of Christianity, I mean, he himself describes himself in the Word of God as an eternal being with no beginning and no end. So that would have to be correct concerning the nature of God as being eternal.
So you would agree with the statement that the nature of God is eternal, but the problem, would you agree with the statements that Antangelo was making about the universe, that it's impossible for it to be eternal? Only God can be eternal. Would you agree with that statement that Antangelo was making?
Because if I would believe that the universe would be eternal, then I'd have to believe that the universe is God. And I'm not a deist, but I'm a theist. I believe that the creation around us is a product of the eternal creator. So there is a time in which the matter that we see around us, I don't believe the matter is eternal. I believe that the things came into being through him, through God.
So particularly he would be outside completely of the universe that we are talking about. Is that how you would come to the conclusion? Is that would be, I don't know if I'm rude or not here, the compartmentalization that you would do, that because God is eternal, same with yourself, Antangelo, because God is eternal and can always be, and is always eternal, but yet the universe has an impossibility and cannot be eternal, does that then remove God and, put him completely outside of our realm of existence?
I don't see it like that, in the sense that I see that God describes himself as outside of time as one of his attributes. Now, a lot of people may want to say that, can God lift a rock too big so he can't lift? There are many things that God cannot do, and that wouldn't contradict the Christian definition of the omnipotence of God. Now, there's all of his attributes. If God has the attributes of eternity, God cannot cease to be eternal. So of course, God being timeless and outside of time, and God being described as being spirit is not a physical human being like you and I. We often picture God in our mind as a physical being in a physical universe.
So I will go down so far as the route as you're asking the question, or you're making the statement that there is there's a logical mind that exists without a physical body, and then I fall back again on the, we don't have physical proof, the same as what I made the point with Ontangelo, is we don't have physical proof of a mind existing outside of a physical body.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if you can explain it a little more extensively. Maybe I may.
The point that I was making is the conflation between philosophy and the physical world. With Ontangelo, he's talking about the philosophical nothing, and we have a physical nothing. And then what I'm talking about with you is you're saying that God exists and he's eternal and he's always been there, but we have no physical representation of a brain existing or a mind existing without a physical body. There's always
I don't even know how we can describe nothing as being something in any way, shape, or form. I mean, how can we talk about a material nothing? Nothing is nothing. I mean, I'm getting confused now.
No, I think we're going to end up just conflating and going back and forth. Does anyone else like to put in or jump in on anything we're talking about here?
I'm happy to.
Go for it, Dave.
I was going to ask John on very specific wording. I don't want to get caught up on semantics, especially because of Rib's entertainment that we are shortly going to enjoy. But you used the words, God describes himself as, and I'm just very curious as to how you come to that conclusion, or whether that's just me being pedantic on words, because I wouldn't know whether that comes from some sort of personal experience of them talking to you like in a anecdotal way. Is it because that is what is said in the Bible, etc.?
Well, of course, God has revealed himself, particularly and I would say that's my assertion, that God has revealed himself in the Bible personally, and he had revealed himself in many other ways, namely innately. I don't believe there's anyone here that don't believe in God in some ways, but not the same, not as the same way as God is being described in his word. So yes, God revealed unto man the way that he is being through Holy Scripture. Yes.
When you say that God reveals himself in Scripture, do you just mean that Scripture describes God, or do you mean that God somehow pops out of Scripture? Can you go into a little more detail about? Because I know I've used that terminology before as a past Christian, but I think that I might have meant it in a different way.
Well, God has inspired his words. He's moved. That's what the Bible actually says. He moved these men and inspired them to, the product was inspired. So that's what I mean by that.
But wait a minute. If you're going to allow that, then you have to allow for the possibility that the Principia Discordia is revealed by Eris to Carrie Thornley and Greg Hill while they were both on an acid trip in a bowling alley in Whittier, California in 1959. I know, that sounds ridiculous.
Can they justify the preconditions of intelligibility? I'm not quite sure.
No, please, no. Don't Psi 10 Brugengate me, okay? I'm not going to go for that.
I don't really know Psi 10 Brugengate. I'm talking about Greg Bonson and Van Thiel. These are my favorite apologists on the topic. Maybe Psi has read him. I'm not quite sure.
It's entirely possible, because that's a play right out of his playbook. Can you justify? Do you use your reasoning to justify your reasoning? How do you justify your groundwork with your reasoning by using your reasoning? No.
I don't recall talking about epistemology in our discussion.
I think she's going down the route of Psi 10 because she heard one thing and then thinking the rest. So she's just going on ahead. But we've only met John tonight. We don't have an opinion. So the more that John talks, the more we can get to know him. So that would be good. Yeah. Go on ahead, John.
This kind of does go back to something she was saying earlier, though, about so you got this revelation to the writers of the Scripture. but it's their word that was revelation from God. What justification, unless you've had special revelation yourself, I'm not gonna indicate one way or the other, then you're trusting the word of people to take that information down and tell you that God told them that.
Yes, and if God reveals himself or whatever to me, I'm going to check to make sure I've taken my medication today. Okay?
Yeah.
We're always wanting to
My own experience.
Go on ahead, Thomas.
Incorrect.
Where I wanted to go with it when I asked John about how does God reveal himself through Scripture, is there are a lot of books that claim to be divinely inspired, direct words from deities that claim to be, higher forms of knowledge. And as far as I'm concerned, every single one of them that I've read seemed remarkably human in its descriptions and its lack of higher knowledge. And, there are so many things that could have been presented 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago to ancient humans that, even just telling us about, bacteria, viruses, disease, telling us to if Jesus, instead of saying you don't need to wash your hands because what makes you, impure is what comes from inside of you rather than, what goes into your body, like things like that. Just, and I know that you can defend it and say that the context is different and the meaning is different and stuff, but it shouldn't have to be so malleable. It should be something that if God understands that, we humans have different languages, there's going to be different translations. Some of us aren't as educated as others. Most people read at about a 9th grade level or lower. And that's in the 21st century, when this is the first century when, more than half the population on Earth is able to read. And if that's the case, you'd think that a God who's really trying to communicate would do a lot better at communicating than people who have PhDs in communications. That he would do a lot better of a job at communicating than newspaper editors who realize people, can't read at super high abstract levels. So instead of having these layers upon layers of, well, you have to go to the ancient Greek, you have to study, ancient Aramaic, you have to understand the context at the time, you think that a master communicator, perfect, all-knowing God would be able to communicate those points so effectively that all of us would look and be like, wow, this is divine knowledge. It talks about the Big Bang. It talks about how, to reverse entropy, how to, build clean renewable energy. Like, there's so many aspects that are just so much higher knowledge than what we have now that we've gained, or aspects that are so much better than what was put in the Bible that we've gained over the last couple thousand years of scientific development that could have been in the Bible but weren't. And all they knew was what people knew at the time.
Yeah, the purpose of the Bible is not to answer to our satisfaction. God doesn't try to communicate to people. He's not desperately trying to communicate to his creation.
But you said it's revealed. You said it's revealed. So how is it revealed if there's nothing that really seems like everything that I read in there is remarkably human? It's remarkable.
Yes, of course, because it was human that wrote it.
So then how is it revealed that it's God? How is it obvious that it's from God if it's to me as...
The Bible never made the assertion that it was not written by man whatsoever. It made the assertion that it was not only guided by man, that God has used them as a pen to reveal unto his creation the truth about himself. But when I said that, I didn't mean that God is trying to communicate to people and he's desperate to try to communicate to his creation. I do personally believe that we exist to glorify him, a way or the other.
How can we, how can I, and I say this as someone who is sincerely, genuinely seeking for truth. I'm not trying to do a smackdown. I'm not trying to be a dick. I genuinely want to know, if you say that God reveals himself through Scripture, how is it that the book is perfectly written? Is it that it has no inconsistencies, no historical inaccuracies, no scientific flaws? How can I tell that the book is mine? Because I'm at a loss.
The message of the Bible together, if you look at, of course, I don't really personally, as a Christian, and not only a Christian, I'm a Calvinist, I don't believe that God's I don't believe that that there's any evidence that I will present to you that will satisfy you ultimately.
Why? If God is all loving and He wants me to be saved and He doesn't want to torture me for all eternity, then why wouldn't He want to reveal that information to me?
I've never made.
I can maybe answer that question, Thomas. I believe that God gave enough light for those that seek Him, and they will find Him, and He gave enough darkness to those that want to live separate and apart from Him, so they can deny Him. God values more.
Well, that's not true. I saw it. I sought God 100%. I was a Christian for 24 years. And I didn't leave the faith because I didn't want to. I very much wanted to still be a part of the Christian fold. It's just that I researched enough and saw too many inconsistencies and too many flaws in the book that I honestly, being sincere and genuine, I could no longer say that I believed something that I no longer did.
No, that's interesting because I started to read the Bible when I was 18 years old. I didn't have any understanding whatsoever in regards of science, and after 36 years I can say that my faith and conviction that God exists has grown enormously. And
I'm not denying that that's your experience. I'm not denying that you read that and that you came to a different conclusion than me. But for you to discount my experience and say that I didn't seek Him enough, or that God only provided light for people who genuinely seek Him, I find that kind of offensive, to be honest, Otangelo, because I did genuinely seek Him for years, to the point where I thought that I was experiencing the Holy Spirit. I would raise my hands and worship and sob and just praise God. For years and years and years of my life, I was completely consumed by it. And I enjoyed it, and I loved it, and I thoroughly worshipped God.
Thomas.
And I came to a different conclusion.
Thomas,
can I address something that you said, John? The statement that you made. You said that God isn't trying or attempting to communicate with us. So, but yet, He, in the Bible itself, he passes down these laws. He gets mad at us when we don't, do what He wants us to do. So I don't understand. Is He not trying to communicate with us at all? Are we not supposed to be following His laws? Are we just supposed to divinely, know them in some way? I don't know. There seems to be a divide here in terms of how you feel we communicate or hear from God.
I was trying to answer, and I appreciate for your question. Thank you very much, Thomas. I was trying to answer what you said because I thought that was fascinating. The type of question you've asked concerning God. You've asked the question: Isn't God trying to save me right now? And I don't believe that God is trying to save. Equally every single people on this earth. I don't believe that God is trying to save and He's not able to do. I don't think that God is trying to do something and He's not able to do that.
So He plays favorites, or if He's inept.
Sorry?
So does He play favorites, or is He inept?
Well, to me, the sentence makes sense, and please correct me if I'm wrong. That sounds like the whole predisposition thing that the Calvinists have going. Is that where you're coming from? Where the predetermination, where God has said, okay, this is what is going to happen, and we're just going to let it play out.
Oh, the Bible says in Romans 9 that the potter has the right to do what he pleases with his clay, and he has prepared beforehand vessels of mercies and vessels of wrath. That's
so. If you don't think we have free will to change our mind, then what's the point? I thought that was kind of the whole premise of saving people and changing minds, is that they have free will, that the whole notion of hell and punishment and justice was based on that notion.
Actually, the Bible, interestingly enough, speaks about the fact that we are under the nature of Adam, and we need to be made new in Christ. And in order to do that, the Bible says that you cannot come to Jesus unless the Father draws you. That's a biblical teaching. And,
sounds very Calvinist to my ears, unless I'm...
Well, it's John 6:44, and people can read it. That's the biblical teaching concerning that. No one can come to Him. And the evidence that you come to Jesus is that there's something of a spiritual nature that happens. A drawing of a supernatural.
So you buy into the notion of predestination?
Well, I think the Bible is very clear in teaching that, of course.
Well, I disagree with that view. I'm not a Calvinist in that sense. I think that God, He extends His grace to all humanity, and those that believe will be saved. Now, those which reject God, they are responsible on their own for their rejection. You cannot say that God predestined someone to hell, then you will shift the responsibility rather instead to yourself, to God.
That's not true.
I think that would be a very unjust God when He would predestine people to go to hell, and I disagree with that view.
Well, that is the argument of Romans 9. Paul actually responded to your argument, saying, does the potter has the right to do what he pleases with his clay? The thing is, we are responsible for our actions. The Bible teaches that we are responsible for what we do. And of course, God doesn't act in us and communicate malice. That's not the biblical teaching. But He has left us in our nature. And we do what we want to do, which is sin, unless we be given and granted mercy through Christ Jesus. That is the biblical teaching. I can't.
Incredibly authoritarian.
I can't tell you anything about this outside of what I said. I mean, the Bible is very clear about that. And
but why do you believe that? Like, I'm still. You say that you believe it because God has revealed Himself through Scripture, and you just know what is it about Scripture that, because all of that entire layout to say that God is omnibenevolent, that He's all loving, and He's a just God.
He is.
Is Scripture declares that, and at the same time to say that He predestined some people to burn for all of eternity. That's not justice. That's complete. That's a egomaniacal, insane, sadistic narcissist. Like that's a.
I agree with you, Thomas.
That's not what I said. The thing is, my position is not even that. I don't even believe that God has predestined people to go to hell regardless.
So you don't believe in hell?
Yes, of course. But the thing is, God has given us a will that is in bondage to our nature. And our nature is a sinful nature. And hence we desire to do things by our nature. And our nature is, since it's a fallen nature, it causes us to will and desire to sin. If you read Freedom of the Will,
that's still setting us up for failure. That's still saying that He created us with certain propensities that He knows there's no way that we can overcome, made us that way, and then set up a punishment. Unless you don't believe in a punishment.
Well, actually, of course, we cannot save ourselves. That's the statement of the Bible. We cannot redeem ourselves. That's the reason why Christ was sent to die for.
But you're saying that some of us can't be saved at all. You're saying that some of us are just predestined to be fallen forever. And so when I see that,
according to your will, it's not against your will. It's not as if you would try to be Christian and want to be saved, and you're not going to be saved. Actually, if you're seeking God, that's the result of His drawing you.
But you're saying that some people are predestined to fail, no matter what.
At the end of the day, the human actions are all predestined. If God is really truly God, He's sovereign. All the evil that's happening in the world, God must be sovereign. Otherwise, the definition of God from the Bible would contradict itself, and that's the reason why I'm a Calvinist.
I just don't see how you can read this book and look at this system and see, on the one hand, God being defined as omnibenevolent, all-knowing, all-powerful, and then at the same time you have this view of God as this incredibly sadistic, setting us up for failure, to quote Christopher Hitchens, creating us sick and then ordering us to be well, and not see the contradiction there. So if that's in your Bible, God reveals Himself in Scripture, I'm like, how do you get to that conclusion?
The reason that I see God's love in this description as being love for all creatures is that, I notice that you and I are breathing right now, and yet we are sinning every day against the God that created us. We eat, we enjoy pleasures in the world, and God has been gracious to extend His mercy and patience, even to the people here listening. That's my assertions. That
John, I say this as someone who has been in seriously abusive relationships, and that sounds like someone who is under an abusive mindset. It's, oh, how great it is that, you know, they didn't hit me today. They let me.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Thomas.
That's an incredibly horrible way to look at the world. Like, I genuinely feel sorry for you.
Of course, you're not going to accept this because you will approach the idea of a God as God owes us something, and I don't
think that. Honestly, I look at this life and I think it's amazing and I think it's wonderful. And every day that I wake up and get to breathe, I'm grateful to be alive. I don't take any of it for granted. I could walk out tomorrow and get hit by a car. That's like the nature of reality. I was so lucky to be the fastest sperm, and yet, like, I don't have to take it for granted and think that I'm owed it. You know, I can be grateful and still not think that, you know, there's this God that is just like, oh man, I'm this broken, horrible, sinful, miserable wretch that just deserves to burn for all eternity. It's not that kind of dichotomy.
Maybe I've poorly explained what I meant concerning the gospel call is to all men, but the efficiency of the drawing is only to the elect or the Christians.
That's so incredibly titled and pretentious.
God extends mercy through all creatures through the gospel. And as I said, we are enjoying our time here every day, and I do personally believe it's a grace and the extension of God's love to all His creatures.
Well, if I can, we have been going for absolutely hours. We've been going for nearly 3 hours, and that conversation could go on and on and on. That's a very deep conversation.
If we let it,
It is. John, I wanted to say, man, if I can just give, I've only just met you tonight. You jumped in. We've just met yourself tonight. I hope that we can further our conversation. I'll definitely pass your information on to John, and I think Thomas had a nice conversation with you. And at least it's proof that there is people out there that, as the Calvinist point does look from our side, so to speak, there is people who are willing to engage in conversation and move us forward. So I personally, from my standpoint, want to say thank you very much, John, for joining tonight.
Yeah, can I also say I get fired up because I'm passionate, but I respect the fact that you're that you're here and having this conversation, and I do thoroughly enjoy it.
And I would say I appreciate you all and I love you all. I wouldn't share these things if I didn't. I wouldn't even take that time.
I find that very an odd thing to say, but
and I want to thank you for being here, John. I mean, please don't take anything I say as being against you personally. Your arguments, that's another story. But no, you're a fine guy. Love you dearly, and thanks for being here and presenting everything.
Yeah. Thomas, you jumped in there when John, and if you want to give yourself a wee plug and let everyone know and shill your channel and let anyone know where they can find you, Thomas.
I don't need to shill anything, but if you guys want to join my Discord server, I do have a Holy Koolaid Discord server where I engage with people.
Yeah, we need to sort that security system, but we'll get that sorted. We'll bounce up to David Worley, who's been very shy and quiet, and I know Dave's in the UK, like me and Dave. He's not used to being up this late, so thank you, David Worley, for joining. And if anyone,
I am.
Bounce and let yourself, let everyone know who you are.
Dave Worley. I do a podcast on YouTube. My primary channel is by my name. There's also a Clips channel and a Dave Responds channel, and just various other things that I do. Whether I'm useless at plugging, but I do have a book on logical fallacies. If people need a handbook to try and understand what's been going on, I've tried to throw some down into the live chat as they've been happening. Because they're not always best to just bring up in conversation. But that's called Fantastic Fallacies and Where to Find Them.
Yeah, I will be too lazy to put anything in the Discord, so check in the description. Check the live chat; you'll find the links. Brian,
I love the name of your book, by the way, David. I'm gonna have to check it out someday.
I half stole it. I mean, I'll send you a copy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There you go. It's on record. Make him sign it and all as well. Thomas, it'll be worth money in a few years. Brian,
I never promised it.
Go on ahead. No, sorry. Go on ahead, Dave. If you're not finished, go on ahead.
Oh no, I just said I wouldn't promise signing it. Sorry.
Brian, have you anything coming up on your channel?
Well, I am frozen up right now, so
But it froze with a smile. At least it's a good picture.
yeah.
It's a good place to be frozen.
Have we lost you all together now, Brian?
Oh.
Yeah, we've lost Brian. Dave. Dave.
Hello. Our critical question starts again on Tuesday.
Oh boy.
Tuesday, what time? 4:30 Eastern or 5:30 Eastern or what?
9:30 UK.
4:30 Eastern, everybody. On Tangelo, go on. Have a free plug for your fifth go on your channel.
Okay, my channel is The God Talk. I invite anyone, any atheist that wants to have a talk with me. I like very much to talk about creation, intelligent design. Tomorrow I will have a special guest at my channel. It's Barry Schwartz. He was a member of the STURP team, which investigated the Shroud of Turin in the 80s. And he will share how he came to believe that the Shroud of Turin is real and that it's not a forgery. So that will be tomorrow night at 9 my local time, Brazil. I don't know in the United States, but check out my channel. If you're interested in the subject, I think it is a very interesting topic.
Yeah, he's only about 40 years out of date, so that's good. We'll definitely check that out.
Okay.
Diana, have you anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, let's see. Just the usual stuff. Me and Bionic Dance and Mumnado are doing our thing Sunday at noon and Tuesday at 7 p.m. More or less our little version of The View, and we haven't figured out yet which one of us is Whoopi Goldberg, but we're working on it. I may be adding a couple of things soon because I was talking to Robert Reed a little while ago, and yeah, it sounds like I might want to get back into response videos as soon as I finish setting this system back up, because I just
Yeah, looking good.
Replaced the broken disk drive.
I don't know if that's a VHS player behind you showing your age, but we'll not talk about that, you know.
No, behind me, this is my audio amplifier and my two computers.
It's just a hipster.
Yeah, there you go.
Amanda, you have just rejoined us. Have you anything coming up this week? Have you any TV times or interviews or anything coming up this week?
I'm doing a TV time Saturday, either with you or Angel. I don't know which yet. So either Game of Thrones or the Clone Wars. On Sunday, I have discussing Operation Paperclip with Chris Shelton, and I did a Dark Matter cartoon that should be coming out in a few weeks. But,
oh my! Oh my!
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm dating a famous person. It's fantastic. Right. Well, one thing that Rib has been iconed, as if anyone has noticed, and he did make a statement in the chat earlier on a wee while ago that if we did hit 50 likes, that he would do all of next week's show in drag. And I don't know who's got all them sock accounts because there was only about 35 people watching, but we did hit 50. So Rib is prepared to give us a little flash. A little
preview.
A preview.
This is not the. This is not.
Yeah.
20 of
This
those
is not
socks
the
were ripped.
complete look. I just want to say that. Obviously, you guys can't see me.
Hold, Rib, if you can just give me 1 second, I should be able to. Give me 1 second. We're going to switch that off. We're going to
just
go.
want to stress, I have no wig. I have no fucking makeup. No nothing. It's literally just the top half of what you're going to see.
Okay, and I think you're full screen now. Everything going well. You should be full screen for everybody.
Right, okay, so this is partially it, not the full picture, but this. Oh fuck, my tits are lopsided. It's genuinely what you're going to be seeing next week. So, yeah. Double D's apparently. Double D's.
So,
apparently. So yeah, so MathPig, when I said that they were heavily padded, I mean they are heavily padded. So yeah.
That's lovely.
I just want to say, I probably picked the worst time to do it because, Thomas, I've been a fan of the Holy Koolaid show for so fucking long. I've watched every episode of you on Talk Heathen. This is the first introduction you're having, and it's not necessarily a great one. I'm not freaking out. Yeah.
It's nice to meet you, padded tits and all.
Well, I think everybody had a wee bit of fun tonight. We all enjoyed ourselves. It was a good conversation, as always. It usually takes a wee while to get going and useless for the first 20 minutes. But I think it ended up quite well. A few stars arrived tonight. Thank you very much, Thomas and David and Ontangelo and the rest of us, all normal people. Padded bra man, crazy cat lady, and Dave. Yeah, we've got a bunch of people here. It's wonderful. As always, thanks everybody for coming and watching. If you didn't watch, it wouldn't be worth anything. And my Patreons, we will outro, we will oink and out. And thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye bye.